Hey, entrepreneurs and influencers. Sometimes talking about the F word can get dirty. No, not that F word. Finances, baby. Let's talk about it. This is the Dirty Money Talk podcast on YouTube. I'm Stephanie Arrington. Let's do this. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today for another installment of the Dirty Money Talk podcast with Precise. I'm Stephanie Arrington, your host. Today, we've all come together to answer one of the most burning questions of the day. What should I be doing with my money? That is the question that is universally appropriate at this time. I'm bringing on our esteemed guest. His name is Mr. Kenneth Clarke. He works with Peake Financial Group in and around the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. In his position, he leads the firm's efforts to assist business owners in developing and implementing strategies that can work for you too. Let me bring Ken on right now. And remember, we're going to put him in the hot seat first. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
Stephanie Arrington. As you well know, I'm the host of the Dirty Money Talk podcast with Precise. I have been tasked to bring you before our group of esteemed colleagues in reference to some pretty heavy-hitting Q&A for your financial advice. But first, I got to put you in the hot seat, Ken. Let's lean in. Now, you may not be familiar, but there are 4 questions that I poll all our guests, and I'm just going to get started. All right. Question number 1. What is your earliest memory of money?
Wow. So this might be telling my age, but as young lads, my brother and I had paper routes, and we would roll the neighborhood delivering papers. And we were, of course, collecting a very small check from that. But between the two of us, we then decided, are we going to use this just for candy and video games? Are we actually going to do something appropriate with it? So, of course, some of it was spent on treats and snacks, but we actually were able to put away a couple dollars. So I'd say probably this was probably 10, 11 years old when we started this paper route. Yep.
That's amazing. So right away, I'm hearing a lot of key themes about saving, earning. Okay, I feel like we were setting the tone, foreshadowing your life. Question number 2.
Everything.
What did your parents teach you about money?
So I was, I think, in a household that was probably similar to many of ours, where I had one parent, my father, who he had a 9 to 5 that of course went towards paying the bills, but then he tried a few other side gigs along the way. And in doing that, helped us understand the need to not rely on one gig, because that gig can be taken away if you're with the wrong group, the wrong firm, the wrong people. But my father was the one who talked about money, talked about stocks and bonds and we would from time to time look at the newspaper with him to look at how the market was adjusting and responding to things. My mother, on the other hand, and I love her, but you know, we all learn certain lessons from our parents, right? My mother was the one who said, "Don't ever let anybody know how much money you make." Right? She was very for her it was important to keep things close to the vest. So my mother was a DC public schools teacher, retired after 33 years, and my father retired from the what we now know as Metro, but Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. He was a civil engineer with them. So just to kind of, I guess, help give a little context to where they were coming from.
That's very interesting that you mentioned their career, because that actually plays into, like, you know, a lot of our conversation today. These questions are rigged, I promise you. Okay. Question number 3. This is fun. It may be fun, it might not be fun. Question number 3. What was your biggest money mishap that you can admit on camera today? Don't get in trouble, Ken. You're on mute. You still on mute. And you still on mute. Okay, what's that?
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
That I can admit. Wow.
Yeah.
So in when I got out of school, started my first job, had a couple extra nickels, and I was investing in stocks at that point, and not a lot of money because I didn't have a lot of money, but investing in stocks. And I'm an engineer by training, so I've got a degree in electrical engineering, and I was working in a kind of a tech environment, and so a lot of my stocks were very tech heavy. So you know, had computers all around us, had different types of electrical gear, if you will, and I was just, I think, too heavily invested in technology, and I didn't kind of diversify, if you will. I think we've all heard that term. I didn't diversify as I should have been at that time. And so one of the stocks that I had did very well for a certain period of time. And then I looked up one day, and it may have been a Monday, I don't know, but I looked up one day, and over the course of that morning, it lost 40% in value. And, you know, at that point, I worked on the first. 40% of that stock value in that morning, and unfortunately, it didn't recover. So I had some plans for the money, and those plans went out the window as well.
I know you was sick. Oh my goodness.
That's got one thing on my side.
We listen and we don't judge. Thank you for being vulnerable, Ken. I do appreciate that. Question number 4, and this one, let's bring the room back to life. What would you tell your 21-year-old self about money? Very specifically that age, yes.
21, sure. Start today. Don't waste money on trying to keep up with the Joneses. And also put away as much money as I comfortably can.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you playing along in the hot seat. Our viewers do tend to enjoy getting to know you more personally, and it just is a very friendly icebreaker. Okay. Now, to formalize our meeting and our discussion, I would like for you to, as our speaker, and you're familiar with our weekly speaker format from our association in Tip, I will allow you to basically enlighten our listeners with more about you, how you got started, where you are now, and where you want to go with your business.
And would you like me to take 30 seconds, or am I allowed a little more than
Well, the speaker I thought was 10
that?
minutes,
There we go.
not the show voter. I'm the
Fair
show
enough.
voter today.
Fair enough. Um, so first, I'd like to say thank you for everyone on the call for taking time out of your schedule. You could be doing many other things. You could be at the pool, at a barbecue, uh, with family, or just doing nothing, right? But so I appreciate you taking time out to share with us. But as Stephanie mentioned, my name is Kenneth Clarke. I am a financial advisor with Peake Financial. We are located in downtown Silver Spring. We have 4 other financial advisors and about 25 insurance professionals, insurance agents that are licensed with our group. I've been with Peake a little over 10 years, and I guess I'll kind of step back a little bit. I touched on it that I'm a engineer by training, so I finished college with a degree in electrical engineering. Spent about 15 years in the information technology arena, playing with computers, coding, moving up a little bit in the ranks, and realized that I wasn't built for that, to do that for another 30 years, right? So I switched gears, and at that time opened a personal training and fitness franchise called Fitness Together. So taking care of my health, eating right is another passion of mine. But I was doing IT consulting part-time while running that. Had that business for another 10 years. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the clients that I worked with. But as my lovely daughters were born and were getting a little older, I realized that that I was missing a few of their important engagements, and so worked towards moving on from that business. I was fortunate to sell it, and at that time, kind of leaned on my mentors, including my brother and a few other folks, to determine what were next steps for me. And I've been investing. Stephanie touched on it, but I've been investing since my active college days. Not like I was investing a lot of money, but I was more so investing to learn about the market, to understand the market. And I think that's unfortunately what a lot of folks that we see, we interact with, we're family with, we don't get it. We don't get the exposure. We don't get the experience with the market. We watching TV, we see the ups and downs, but may not be understanding the behind the scenes, what's going on. Why is the market up today? Why is the market down today? And so at that point, kind of laid the groundwork for switching gears and moving into the financial advising arena. I was fortunate because I feel like I knew a good bit about what I needed to know, but of course there were a lot of holes and gaps that I filled in with training, and there's funny thing is you realize that your brain doesn't work the same at 40 as it does at 20, right? So the training, the qualification exams, and the ongoing continuing education, was challenging because I was a little older than perhaps some of the other folks. In addition, many of the folks around me were coming into the industry working for family,
go to conferences, I go to luncheon, seminars, and folks around me. Oh, I work for my father's firm. I work for my uncle's firm. I didn't have that, and I actually didn't know anybody. I knew a couple folks who were in the industry, but I didn't have any family relationships where I could just step in and be given a handful of clients or even a bunch of clients. Many of the folks coming into the industry get clients because they get the clients that their father or uncle or mother perhaps has outgrown, and they're able to work on those clients. I started off in ground floor, but I was able to join a partner who had a small firm, learn some good things from him, and then was going after about 2 years to where I am currently at Peake. And it's been, I've definitely enjoyed the journey. So we work with individuals, families, and small businesses to assist them with all of their retirement and financial planning needs. And that could be buying a single stock. It could be assisting with retirement planning, and it might take different forms. I'll throw out some acronyms. Helping with 401k, 403b. It might be the situation might lend itself to some sort of IRA structure, SEP or Roth or traditional, and then also benefits. Just assisting small businesses, making sure that their benefit structure is going to allow them to attract and retain qualified individuals. So I'll be the first to admit that I don't know everything about everything. I do see some similar cases come across my desk, week to week, but where there are unique situations or complex situations, I've got colleagues that I turn to, and we sit down and discuss it. We also work under Emeritus Investment Company. They are headquartered in, an office in Bethesda around the corner, but also have offices in Lincoln and Omaha, Nebraska. So Emeritus is they're our JP Morgan. They are our Merrill Lynch. Any question, concern that I can't answer, I can place a call, send an email, and I can find the right individuals to assist with those concerns. And they have every qualification, every designation represented under their corporate structure, whether it be attorneys, estate planning. We do have tax professionals, but of course, definitely is our tax professional, of course. But they have every position represented, every qualification needed to provide the right solution for our clients. And definitely, I think I'll kind of close there. That we've got a fully staffed, fully supported group, and we have conversations with everyone. We may not be able to help everyone, right? Sometimes it's a matter of providing some suggestions, maybe acting on those suggestions a little bit down the road. Maybe it might be a year from now, 3 years from now, whatever the case. But in most cases, we can handle anyone who walks in the door. Whether you're looking to invest $50 or looking to invest $50 million, we can help you.
And that's what we like to hear. And that's why you're here. Thank you. I would like to get started with some questions from our audience. All right. I won't name you, but question number one.
Unless you want to be named, right?
Unless you want. If you recognize your question, please feel free to self-identify. I ain't going to do that to you. This is a safe space.
That's right.
All right. So the first question from one of our attendees is, what is the best strategy to build for retirement at 51 with low cash at the moment?
So I think the first step is to fully appreciate, fully understand the situation. And for every client, I find that unless they have one specific need, I find that it's important to generate a financial plan for that client. That allows us to understand cash flow, fully appreciate cash flow, fully understand income. Is it income from a 9 to 5? Is it income from a 9 to 5 plus side gig? Is there a rental income? Did they win the lottery? You know, we understand the full picture. So with the financial plan, it's putting your financial business on the table. We kind of wade through it, understand the good, bad, and in between. And then we plot a course from that point going forward. You know, if the cash flow is low now, the question is there a possibility that may change at some point in time? You don't want to, we love everyone to live a long and healthy life, but perhaps is there an inheritance that might be coming? That's the thing. Anything that might change the life, you know, your current situation that we know is coming, or that might be a possibility of changing the financial picture. Once we understand that, then we can determine the course of action. There's some low-hanging fruit that we can address. But many times it might be just a slow and steady, investment of assets in the right vehicle that will get to where the desired result.
That's a very interesting point that you make about really getting to understand the cash flow, and not to throw around our financial jargon. Cash flow is what comes in and what goes out. Accounting is all that and also where it goes. So that means you have to really be open to speaking to your financial advisor in the same way you would with another fiduciary, like your favorite tax preparer, or even your doctor, your attorney as well. A lot of times, what I've found is that people are not willing to take that honest look. They don't really want to see all that. Ken, how have you been able to help individuals that might enable that ostrich in the sand philosophy? They don't want to look. What have you run into that? How have you dealt with that?
Short answer is yes. I do run into that almost daily, right? Everyone has their own relationship with money, right? And for some folks, they're very organized and keep spreadsheets and track every expense. For other folks, that's not the case. And so, I let folks know out the gate. We touched on it earlier. We're not here to judge folks, right? We can't change what happened yesterday. We can't change what happened over the last 30 years. What we can do is make some positive change to impact our people. And so if a client is willing to be vulnerable and put their financial business on the table for us to review with them, we can make that change. I think the most challenging situation when there's certain things that are held back for fear of judgment. If that's the case, then I might be providing, the wrong advice. So it's got to be open lines of communication for us to make sure that we're assisting in the right thing.
I have to figure out a better way. People be crying. They don't really want to. They don't want to look. Okay, all right. Enough about that. Let's get into another question. This is a good one. How can I best structure investments and assets for my kids' future, especially with one about to graduate college and another entering college with a scholarship. Ken, what do you think?
So Stephanie, do you think we're talking about that question leans towards legacy investments, or do you think we're talking about handling
There's
investment?
another part to this question, so let me put it all together. It's a little long.
Sure.
So this person shared that they're building multi-generational wealth through strategic investing, business ownership, and tax-efficient planning. What are the smartest moves they can make right now to reduce my tax burden? We'll table that for later, while maximizing returns across my portfolio, including real estate, stock market, and my LLC. How can I best structure investments and assets for my kids' future, with one on the way out of college and another one on the way in? That was a mouthful, so you might have to break that down into a couple of meals.
Yeah, that's a heavy question, right? And it would be
maybe you can give us an appetizer of an answer, and then they can call you after.
Yeah. So there would be no way I could give the answer in this call without knowing the defined details. But it sounds like we would need to have some open conversations with Stephanie. Also need to bring in an estate planning attorney to make sure that things are titled appropriately, first of all. But then secondly, looking at the investments to understand where they reside, how they're titled, and if the right strategies are in place for where you are in life, but also where the kids are in life. There could be some, that lends itself to maybe there's some gifting that happens at some point for making sure that the real estate is titled appropriately, so that kids aren't taking on a high cost basis. So there's a lot of nuances in that. When we do the financial planning, we've got simple plans, involved plans, and complex plans. That would be a complex plan. That would be one that takes a bit of work to work through, and it won't be okay, we generated the plan, here it is. It's a plan that evolves, that changes over the course of time, that needs to be looked at every year, just to make sure it's fine-tuned and the path is set appropriately, so that we're making the right choices. I appreciate the question. It's a very heavy question, very involved question. But it would take several conversations to get to the approach.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ken. That was a pretty loaded question, and I do appreciate the complexity of the problem and the solution. It's a lot to talk about. But also just kind of always keep in your forethought that all of these plans that we come up with are living and breathing. And if you've ever heard about the butterfly effect, sometimes that one thing you do or don't do can really have like long-term effects. All right, so moving on. I'm sorry.
And I'll touch 30 seconds on the financial plan. So we use one of a couple platforms to generate these plans. And we take the input that the client gives and then utilize that to feed the software. One of the platforms can handle about 85% of people we talk to. The other platform we use for the other 15% or so. But the client also can have access, so they can log in and view it at 2 in the morning if they care to. Or if they want to just look at it when we meet, that's fine too. But it's not just a piece of paper we're giving to you and then you do it as you wish. Because over the years, I've found that you know, everyone receives the information differently, right? Some people that want a 2-pager and lets them know, you know, A to Z. That 2-pager gives them the detail that they need. Whereas other folks want an 85-page report with charts and graphs and pretty colors to give them a different picture. But that person receives that information a different way. But whether it's 2 pages or 90 pages, I don't want that report to be thrown in the corner and never looked at again. I want to make sure it's appropriate answer and the appropriate response for that point.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a different type of question from our audience member. The question is, when starting a business, what's the next step after your business plan is complete and vetted?
Next step after the plan is complete. Okay. So I guess the answer depends on if it's a, you know, 1 or 2 person business, or if they, you know, if you actually have employees coming into the business. And we'd walk different, you know, maybe different paths based on that. But I generally, you know, would probably allow for, you know, 3 to 6 months of understanding the cash flow, understand maybe the fixed expenses, understand the variable expenses, and then you know, trying to have a good sense of what, you know, if you're selling things, widgets, or what have you, are there some operational costs that are seasonal? Just trying to get a sense of, you know, wrap your hands around what's going out the door. The key is, of course, got to attract clients to purchase your services. Again, whether you're selling widgets or you're selling, you know, you're selling consulting in some form or fashion, you've got to find the right vehicle to attract those clients. And I'm not a branding expert, I'm not a marketing expert, but perhaps we need to bring in someone who assists with that. I'm big on outsourcing, right? I think I'm a relatively intelligent guy, but I know that there's certain things that I'd rather pay for because I could have someone do something in an hour that might take me 6 hours to do. And that 6 hours I could spend, you know, on the business rather than try to work my way through something that I'm not an expert in. So determining what you need to outsource, what you need to pay for. My hope is that you have some money set aside to pay yourself during the early stages, as opposed to you know, hunting for every client or trying to make everyone you talk to as a prospect, trying to turn them into a client. But it's just aligning yourself with the right people. I generally tell business owners, you gotta have I don't care if you're a 1-person business or a 200-person business, you gotta have your own board of directors, right? You gotta have someone helping with the taxes, someone helping with accounting, someone helping with attracting clients and retaining clients. You know, you gotta have those different people at the right time to make sure that you're checking all the boxes as your business grows and matures. And I've owned 2 businesses over the years. I don't consider myself an expert, but I've learned some things along the way. And in some cases, you know, I might just be someone to vent to, right, in terms of things I'm going according to plan. But the key is just aligning yourself with the right people and trusted resources that can help you grow and expand your business.
Thank you for that. To your point regarding having multiple businesses, what role are you and your team able to fill in terms of business valuations? Like, are you encountering businesses that are contemplating a sale or purchase of another business? How do you work with that?
Good question. So we actually work, again, mentioned that we work under Emeritus Investment Company. So they work with 2 groups, but one that I've experienced with called Marshall and Stevens. where they can do certified or non-certified valuations. Generally, or at least certified evaluations generally are for companies above 3 million, I believe, and they might have changed that metric. But they do a non-certified valuation for folks who are under that in terms of you know, what you're anticipating as a valuation. But they'll walk through all the numbers, and they'll generally ask for last 2 years P&L, balance sheets, to understand kind of what the numbers look like, and they provide the range. It's always a range, right? And you can sell a business and tell you that this is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, right? So just 3 and 4 times your earnings before taxes might not be the number. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. But we do have consultants that we work with that can provide that report for those things.
Okay. I'm going to pick your brain a little deeper here in the business area. We do have several entrepreneurs that are with us on the call today. And I'd also like to find out, how do you work with startups or new businesses that are potentially looking for some VC venture capital help? Are you in the capital acquisition space with these folks?
So that's great question. That's not our focus, but we do have partners that can assist either on the lending side or also on the VC side. So we do have some partners that we can refer that can assist with that. But that's not our lane per se.
Okay. Okay, let me get back to some of these dynamite, amazing questions from our guests. Oh, this is actually a piggyback on what I just said. I'm so psychic. Oh my goodness. Our question is how to secure funding for a new business or an existing business.
So I might want to say ditto, right?
Okay.
We can just assist you with finding the right folks from a lending standpoint, but also finding, if it's a venture capital situation, we can help with connections on that side.
Great. All right, let me dig around in this mixed bowl of questions and see what else I can. All right. Our next question comes from one of our esteemed colleagues who is interested in finding investments in addition to current life insurance policies for their children's benefit. What has been your experience in those two areas?
Okay, so life insurance and then other investments.
Investment, yeah.
Yeah, so we manage, our group manages money, but we also are life insurance agents. So the key is, let me say this, there's, I think we can go online and on social media and find experts on Instagram or pick a platform with touting the great benefits of life insurance, specifically in a local life policy. They are a great resource or a great option for some people. Okay. And I say that because every week I get a prospect or a client who has come, ringing my phone or come to our office and says, yeah, I bought this policy a year ago and the agent told me X, Y, and Z. And so I got into this policy, but I can't afford it anymore. Or I'm not sure if I can afford it. Or maybe I don't want to afford it, right? They want to put their money elsewhere. So life insurance is about finding the right policy for the right person. And it's got to be right size. It should be, I I would say 9 out of 10 people walking the street are probably underinsured. But when you're underinsured today, you might be overinsured 20 years from now, right? So it's got to be a plan that kind of changes with you, or can change with you, or that, you know, the client fully understands and appreciates the nuances of policy. And today's policies are different than the policies 15 years ago, and they're different than the policies that were 15 years before that. So there's always constant change with updates, with respect to benefits, updates with respect to the different options that are available. I'm a big fan of IUL. I have one myself.
Oh,
I've got an IUL.
we need a whole call just for that.
Yeah. I got an IUL, I got a VUL, got term insurance. So I don't tell my wife how much coverage I have, because that might change the nature of our relationship. However, based on your situation, life insurance can definitely be a great option to handle certain aspects and certain benefits that you may need.
So when you are working with new clients, does it matter necessarily if they are like W-2 employee, self-employed, as you mentioned earlier, lottery recipient? How do you work with folks who may have gotten a recent lump sum or an annuity or a settlement? Like, does that come across your desk a lot?
It does from time to time. It really depends on, investments are based on, really time frame to retirement. If you need those assets in retirement, like you may have, someone on the call might actually have a pension. I know kind of gotten away from pensions. I don't come across many people who have pensions. Well, I do have some older clients, and they have pensions, and I'm jealous, right? But if you're coming into some money, whether it's lump sum, no matter how it comes to you, you just need to understand: do you need that money today? Will you need it down the road, or potentially need it down the road? What is your risk tolerance, right? Are you a conservative investor? Conservative might be putting on the mattress, CD, high yield savings account. Are you, or on the other side of the spectrum, you're an aggressive investor? And generally for aggressive, it might be someone who's comfortable having their investments in mostly, if not all, stock owning the company. So, but we generally settle on somewhere in between. And but again, it's time frame. Do you need it? How liquid do you need that to be? Do you need access to it tomorrow? Do you need access to it 3 days from now? Do you need access to it, or do you maybe want to pass it on to the next generation? We ask all those questions, and we generally ask them maybe 3 different ways so that we fully understand the right direction we should go.
Okay, I'm gonna go in yet another direction, and this is actually one that I feel is broadly appropriate in today's economic climate. This individual, okay, this individual submits a question in regards to debt pay down strategies.
Progress.
Say that again.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I switch gears.
Okay. All right. Let me know when you're ready. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right.
All right. Great.
I'm feeling better.
Our next colleague submits a question in regards to debt pay down strategies. How have you been able to advise some folks that may have fallen behind?
I want to answer it the right way. So generally, many of our clients come to us because they have a little bit extra, right? Or um, they've got to a point in their career where they know they need some help with putting together the right plan, but perhaps just haven't found the right group to work, right? So most often, uh, handling debt is not a big piece of the picture. However, some of our clients have that as a concern. And so in some cases, it might be maybe we pump the brakes, if I can use that term, but we pump the brakes on investing because if your credit cards or store cards or what have you, you've got 9.9, 15.9, 20.9% finance charges. I'm not sure that I can find the right investment that will beat that. And so let's handle it. Let's work on the debt. And so if you got an extra 500 a month, it's not going towards investments, it's going to debt. And then we can circle back. And I'm not a follower of Dave Ramsey and others who say don't invest until you take care of everything. Because some debt is good debt, right? Your mortgage. I'm not saying pay off your house before you invest. But if you got a credit card that's running at 20.29% or a car loan that isn't at 2.9 but actually 13.9, we need to have a different conversation about that debt. And so we can put together a plan, put together a strategy. And unfortunately, maybe the trip to Italy might have to wait a year or two, right? No sense in while I'm a big fan of experiences and taking care of what you want to have, maybe we need to delay certain things so that we can not have that burden and that stress on our shoulders. Our goal as financial advisors, take some of the financial stress off your shoulders by providing advice. And if I'm allowing someone to run around with a certain amount of debt at 30%, I'm not doing my job. So yes, we definitely do provide some strategies, do provide some, whether it's a conservative or aggressive plan, we want to make sure that debt is being taken care
That's very responsible. Thank you, Ken. This person also had a follow-up to that question, which touched on real estate investing. What are your thoughts and recommendations in our current climate?
of. So it depends. I hate to have that answer, but it depends. So first and foremost, for that individual, if you currently have real estate, then it's a different answer. If you're trying to get into real estate investing, then it might be a bigger hurdle for you. As we know in this area, the DC metro area, um, you know, we've got a certain bubble where we aren't impacted by certain market factors. And so, if you wait on purchasing real estate as an investment, might have waited too long. You wait a day, you wait a week, you waited too long. But the first question I always ask folks is, do you want to be a landlord? Okay. Because I find a lot of people aren't built for finding tenants, the right tenants. A lot of people aren't built to have the right processes for collecting checks. A lot of people aren't built for um, fixing a flapper on a toilet, or I lost my keys. So if you want to manage it yourself, that's one thing. If you have a property management company, then they're going to take 7, 10, 12%. So it really depends on if you want to be a landlord. And when I throw out some things that I've experienced over the years, in my younger days, I bought some investment property in Baltimore, thinking it's only 45 minutes away. I'm good, right? I can run up there anytime.
And then I realized, of course, my experience with Baltimore up to that point was Inner Harbor and Fells Point and, all the touristy, if you want to call them touristy areas. Baltimore's a whole different animal, right? And so I realized quickly that Baltimore wasn't the place for me. And I went in with a buddy of mine, and we quickly realized that we didn't have the DNA to be in Baltimore. It was a lot going on. So do you want to be a landlord is the first question. And if you're good with that, or if you're looking at a property management company, then it's fine. But the other side is I've experienced trying to move on from a tenant. And I could have worded that differently. But
Yeah,
but
tell me, it gets dirty on this show, so
yeah, but
want to give them the boot.
give them the boot. And it's a nasty process to evict someone. And if they know they're being evicted, they're not going to take care of your property. And it's hard to evict someone during the winter months. So there's a lot of nuances that go into owning property, whether it's a apartment or multifamily unit or three unit building. There's a lot of nuances that go into it that most folks aren't prepared for. But you gotta ask folks who are already in the business, already in real estate, the pros and cons before you actually drop a down payment on that first rental loan.
In that second scenario in which said tenant is worthy of boot getting, what options do owners of residential real estate have when their tenant is underperforming? Because in general, they don't get to realize any of their accumulated losses until they sell it. But that's not why they got into it. They got into it to hold it and let those millions ripen. Ken, help me out. What can they do?
So I think maybe it's different parts to that answer. It's difficult to get rid of a tenant, very difficult. And what many folks find is that tenants are actually a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They know how to work the system. I'll give an example. It might not be my example, but I'll give an example. Yes, it's my example. I had a tenant come in, paid rent on time, actually early, moved in, I think, in May, paid rent on time, and then October came and no rent. Then November came, no rent. So we started the process. But guess what? I touched on, weather conditions dictate whether you're allowed to boot somebody. So and I don't know the exact details, but basically if the certain level of precipitation, in addition to the weather being under, let's say 45 degrees, you can't evict somebody. And I'm picking numbers, but that, it's close to that. So basically that person was able to string along until about April before we were able to move them out. But again, you go into it because it's real estate's great, real estate's sexy, and there's money to be made. But if you come across someone like that, where there's 5-6 months of no rent being paid, and DC is very tenant friendly, Maryland very tenant friendly. You don't have any recourse. I don't care if you got the best attorneys, in your back pocket. The tenants are going to win most every time. The other side is, of course, we go into it because we want to buy an investment property at a certain number, allow it to appreciate over time, and perhaps pass it on to the next generation. But there are, you've got to ask yourself the question, is it appropriate to hold on to this property if I'm not collecting rent? Is it appropriate to hold on to this property if I don't have the right tenants? And should I have this property if I'm not able to charge the market rent. There are, and you know, it all, again, every day, every week, every month, ask yourself a question: am I built to be a landlord? Because there are other options. I actually recently had worked with several folks who had were looking to either reduce their real estate portfolio or just get out of real estate altogether, real estate investing altogether. And there's, but the concern is I bought it at 100,000. It's now worth 300,000. I got to pay the capital gains taxes on this. Well, that can be a huge load, right? 15, 20%. But there are options, you know, there's 1031 exchanges where you can find the next real estate investment, you know, the next building, if you want to do that. Let's say your investment wasn't in the right neighborhood. So maybe you found a better neighborhood and better able to attract new tenants. Or a 1031 exchange, there are investments that allow you to basically move that money to the investment. In some cases, they're real estate investment trusts, REITs. You would hold that money there for generally 5 to 7 years, but you could then collect a monthly check, generally in the order of 4 to 5%.
Y'all listening? This is being recorded, but I hope y'all was listening. Okay.
So you've sold the property, you've moved the money to an investment, and Delaware Standard Trust is one that we use, but you move it to an investment, and then they'll send you a check for 4 to 5%, and you're investing in, it might be campus housing at University of South Carolina. It might be, you know, a new mall in Indiana. But these are all properties that have already broken ground, they're in development, and they might be in the sales process. So it's not, I think we hear the stories of, you know, professional football players or basketball players that sunk, you know, $20 million into real estate. Well, those are generally haven't even broken ground and haven't gotten permitting. The ones that we look at are construction has been completed. They're just looking for additional investors to purchase condos or investors to purchase, you know, units within a shopping center, that sort of thing. So there's other options. Again, it goes down to the exposure and the, you know, just understanding what's out there. But we have those conversations as well.
Did you mention a REIT? I thought I heard REIT. Can you break that
Yes.
down for our non-jargonated folk?
Sure. So it stands for Real Estate Investment Trust, and it's generally, so to get into it, you have to be qualified investor. And when I say qualified, means basically that you've got to understand the nuances of the investment, which obviously we would walk through with you. Secondly, they have certain minimums. So you can't go into a REIT with $100. You generally go into a REIT with, let's say, $100,000. So again, if you sold a property, you've received obviously some profit from that sale. But let's say you got $100,000 or perhaps more, then you would be qualified to go into utilizing that REIT. Again, it's generally a 5 to 7, from what I've seen over the years, 5 to 7 year hold on your money, meaning it's not a liquid investment. You can't grab it, you know, hey, I need 5,000 for tuition next month. You can't utilize it like that, or there's penalties involved. So they're looking for folks to hold it for 5 to 7 years. And then after that 7-year period, you can move on to the next REIT, or you can move on to the next investment property, or you can obviously put the money in your pocket. It just depends. But it's a way to kick the capital gains tax concern down the road, right? And some folks will do it until they pass. It's part of their estate plan, right? And they'll let their estate handle the capital gains concern.
They're like, not my problem. I'm
Not my
out.
problem. That's right. That's right. And the other side is if you've sold a property, you can actually, hypothetically, you sold it for 400,000. You need 50,000 for some upgrades to the house, or another 50,000 for that trip to, well, it might be an high-end trip to Italy, but let's say you're gonna circle the globe. All right, you need a certain number for that. But then the balance, the 300,000, you can put into the REIT. So you don't have to move all of it to the investment. So it's a really good option, especially because when you're selling an investment property, in order to the 1031 exchange rules are you have to find the next property, you have to close on the next property within 6 months. And I've had a couple of clients who were at, 5 months and 15 days, and they haven't found the next property. Okay, let's get the paperwork started. And they were able to, kind of work around the capital gains issue.
That's great news because, as you know, capital gains is that falls in my area. So I definitely like to have new strategies and tools in my kit that I can discuss and then refer them back to you. Well, listen, I think we have covered the gamut. We have went from retirement. We touched on college students, rental, residential, real estate, all types of stuff. I definitely want to make my beautiful, beautiful. Yes, there is everyone. Hi, y'all. For those of you that bothered to have an avatar, thank you so much. For the rest of y'all, we enjoying your initials and your name spelling as well. Thank you, Jermaine, Amate, Tarsus, iPhone, and Scott Lowry. Wonderful. Would anybody care to just unmute and say hello to Ken and I? That would be amazing. I know I told y'all can be in listen only mode, but y'all can be in the hot seat too. I don't discriminate at all. Let's go.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Stephanie. It's Dawn.
Hey, Dawn. How you doing, Dawn?
I'm just swell. That was very informative, especially that last bit. I didn't know any of that, and I didn't know anything about IULs and VULs, and I can't wait for our visitation because I am clueless. So
Look forward to it. I'm here to help. I love conversations that affect my checking account. However, I'm about sharing information, right? And a lot of conversations I have, don't impact my checking account whatsoever. But if I can get someone on the right path to making some good decisions with their extra dollars, then we both win. Appreciate it, Dawn.
mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dawn. We appreciate you attending today. I know this is some prime relaxation time on a hot Sunday in June, but definitely thank you all for showing
I
up.
wasn't gonna miss it.
Thank you. See, and Dawn is a member of our chapter of the TIP, so she is definitely a welcome addition to this discussion. Thank you so much. Everyone who submitted a question, can you let me know offline if I did not get your question, and I'll make sure that I get you in touch with Ken directly. Amate, I saw you had unmuted. Did you want to share?
Greetings. How you doing, Ken? Hi,
Matzo.
everybody.
How are you, sir?
Doing well. Doing well. Yes, I actually have an additional question for Ken. It involves retirement and business. If you are trying to finance a new business and you decide to access retirement funds to help you finance that, I guess one of the pitfalls is that if you take money out, there's a heavy tax penalty. But if you decide to borrow, you can avoid the tax penalty. Is there ever a time when you would say that with interest calculations, it makes more sense to take out rather than to borrow in a scenario where you're trying to finance a business?
So I guess the key is appreciating the number that you need, right? And that, because I found in many cases, folks say, okay, I need 10,000 to, for the startup costs, but at 10,000 actually turns into 20,000. And so then they borrowed 20,000, and then the concern is, how do you pay it back, right? Because you've got your normal contributions going into your retirement plan, and then they're taking the repayment of the loan out of your paycheck as well. So then your paycheck is going to be lighter every 2 weeks or every month, depending on how you get paid. So yeah, we generally would want to run the numbers to understand, does it make sense to take the loan? And we also have to understand the loan repayment terms, right? What is the interest rate to pay it back? What are the options in terms of time frame to pay it back? And then as you touched on, if you take a distribution from your retirement, I think I'm looking at the crowd, at least the pictures that folks have. Most folks are under 59 and a half. So there would be the 10% early withdrawal penalty. And then whatever you take out is you're getting hit. It just adds to your ordinary income number. So we got to find, which path makes more sense. And just have to have some real conversations of, will the loan be repaid in the time frame that you expect? We won't know that number until we kind of walk down the road. So got to have some hard conversations about it.
Like we said initially, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, to be helped. You got to look at the things that you don't like to look at in the dark. You got to turn the light on it. You got to shine the light on it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything else for Ken?
No, I think that's it. Thank you, Ken. It was very, very informative. And thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Very nice.
So first, we got to thank Stephanie because she put all this together. She's the master.
I'm so happy to be back. My 3 viewers on YouTube will definitely be happy to see that I'm active again. So I wanted to take just a moment to recognize today's date is June 29th. It's a very important date. It is one of my loved ones who is no longer with us. And I feel that she is green lighting us into this financial season of success. So enjoy the month of July on behalf of your favorite Cancerian, Stephanie Arrington. I'm going to let y'all get back to your Sunday. I borrowed you from your life far long enough. So I thank you so much. And I hope you be safe wherever you go today and have a great rest of your weekend. Ken, thank you so much. I will be calling you offline. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye, y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.